In this lecture, we'll be talking about multiple input, multiple output, or MIMO signal processing. And this signal processing is used to undo the polarization rotation to separate out the two independent data streams that were originally launched on separate polarizations. So let's give a little context for MIMO systems. MIMO systems in wireless have existed for a long time. And in this case, there are many kinds of MIMO. Multiple input, in this case, usually refers to transmitting antennas. And multiple output is usually referring to multiple antennas at the receiver end. In this illustration, I've assumed that we have what we call 2x2 MIMO, that there are two transmitting antennas and that there are two receiving antennas. So each one of the antennas is transmitting a separate, independent data stream, and in this case, perhaps QPSK. Now, because it's being transmitted wirelessly, there are different physical paths between this antenna and that antenna, between this antenna and that antenna. And because there are different physical paths, it has a different impulse response. So we can think of the relationship between the received signal and the transmitted signal being that the transmitted signal gets filtered, if you will, by the impulse response of the channel that it is going through. And of course, there's always noise being added. So if we wanted to write this in vector notation, the received signal would be the product of the channel matrix H against the transmitted vector. Of course, there's a noise perturbation. So this can be expanded to any number of inputs, outputs. There's some constraints on whether or not we can invert this matrix H, but it's a well-known mathematical formulation that we can exploit also in optics. So if we look at the optical version of this system, we would have a transmitter that creates two independent streams in optics on different polarizations, and that these polarizations are combined and transmitted across a fiber. Now, because of the birefringence and also because of other kinds of perturbations to the channel, we can also represent this in the same way, that there are something going on here. It could be just the Jones matrix, but we can think of it as being a more practical system where there's propagation in the fiber, which is causing this Jones matrix, but there could be other effects as well, bandwidth limited effects, that could all be grouped together into a total overall channel matrix. And this is what is going to be seen in our coherent detection system, and that's what we're going to be addressing with MIMO processing. So could be just the Jones matrix, it could be the Jones matrix plus some sort of distortion introduced by the channel. So, as well as system distortions. So we're going to be doing blind equalization. And this blind equalization is going to occur in a 4D signal space. 4D signal space means my vector is 4 by 1. I and Q on the X polarization coming out of the coherent detector, I and Q on the Y polarization coming out of the coherent detector. And these are the equations that we have seen for these outputs, where the argument of the sine and cosine are defined by these terms. This is a continuous time system, and what we're going to do, of course, is we're going to sample it at time n, and we're going to process the captured samples to estimate the best equalizer. So essentially we're equalizing the effect of the rotation of the polarization and other signal distortions. And we're doing that in order to estimate what? We're going to try and estimate what was the original data that was transmitted before it saw this channel H. So, MIMO processing, the idea is that any system that can be described by this set of equations can be digitally recovered with a butterfly equalizer. There are some constraints on the inversions on the nature of this matrix, and I won't go into those mathematical refinements for now, but let's just say under certain conditions it can be inverted, and it can be inverted with what we call the butterfly equalizer. So at the butterfly equalizer, what we have are two inputs. The X, in this case our received signal, is the input here, and it's the X polarization, the Y polarization. And it goes through this butterfly structure where we are applying filters in both the, in order to predict the output, which is the originally transmitted data on X and originally transmitted data on Y, Y polarization. So in order to achieve this, we have to do 4 filtering operations. So 2 by 2 gives me 4 filters. I do one that is straight through, capturing what is on X polarization and ought to stay on the X polarization and stay with me. I'm taking something from Y that was in Y but really belonged to be in X, and I've got to add this to my X polarization output. And the same thing goes on for the Y polarization before. And how do I find these weights? I use adaptive equalization using the 2D constant modulus algorithm. So remember, this is a time-varying channel matrix H, which in general is unknown. And because it's unknown, I can't just invert it. It's changing with time, so I have to track it also. And that is why I use adaptive equalization. And this is a time-varying weight matrix, which we have to estimate. And then we come up with the algorithm that allows us to find what are the optimum weights that we should be using. So in a sampled signal, we typically have 2 samples per symbol. It can be as low as 1 sample per symbol, but if I have only 1 sample per symbol, I better have some excellent timing synchronization so that I'm actually sampling that one sample is at the correct time. Of course, other options are available for the number of samples per symbol, but those are the 2 most common choices, 2 or 1. Now, when I do my CMA, I'm going to have a number of taps that are being in each one of these 4 filters, how many taps are in the filter. And I'm going to form a vector with that many samples from my stream of received samples. So here I stack up from lowercase n to lowercase n minus capital N, so that many samples in here. And I have one for the X and of course for the Y. Now I run them through that butterfly, and the butterfly says that the output on the first channel or the X channel is going to be the through path, as I mentioned, and it's going to have the part that I'm pulling out of Y that I need to put into X. Now I want you to pay attention and notice that I have 2 different indices, K and N, just because the K is going to be at the symbol rate. That's going to be 1 sample per symbol. And the N, it could be 1 sample per symbol or it could be 2 samples per symbol. What's important is that once per symbol I'm doing a output of what the equalized output is of the CMA algorithm. So in order to do the adaptation, I need an error signal, an objective function, and there's going to be 2 errors that I have to minimize collectively at the same time. And one of them is in the X polarization, keeping things on the unit circle, and on the Y polarization, keeping things on this unit circle. So of course here, this term is directly the distance from the unit circle. So I'm going to try and make that small. And then this gives radial direction because this is a vector, a complex number which has direction. And also it's like an automatic gain control also for the error. So this is the form that the objective function takes for the 4-dimensional CMA algorithm. So we have again a step size that will be adjusted per system, so you have to really know for your particular system. You may have to play with it and find what is the correct step size parameters. And this is the update equations for my tap weights. And again, this is going on once per symbol, and it'll use one of the, if I have 2 samples per symbol, it'll use one of the 2 in order to generate this update. So again, if there's it's going to choose 1 sample. It'll take, for instance, if it's set in your program to look at the first sample of 2 samples, then it'll output, and everything will be optimized so that the output at that time is the equalized and correct output. Or it could be the first one, it could be the second one, doesn't matter, but whatever it is, it'll adapt, and that'll be the output in the one that has been optimized. So again, just like we saw in the single polarization case with the CMA equalizer, you can iterate to get better results. So you can do one adaptation of the weights, and then you can go back and do another adaptation of the weights. So these are some performance complexity trade-offs that can be set with these parameters, as we saw in the one-dimensional case as well. So remember that these weights are, of course, here I show it explicitly as being a complex number, which is coming in. And so, of course, the taps here are also complex, and what comes out are complex. So the 4D CMA has 4 sets of complex taps, and these separates the polarizations in terms of the data on which polarization it was, and it equalizes the channels separately and jointly. So it looks only at the X polarization channel, and then the through path will equalize for that, as well as in the cross path as well for rotation. So remember I mentioned that there was some ambiguity on rotation, that there are 4 distinct rotations that occur for QPSK that could give a legitimate CMA output. And at the end, I don't know what was the true rotation that it should have taken. So how do I deal with that ambiguity? Well, first of all, the ambiguity exists because the CMA only looks at the ring. It doesn't look at the constellation. Remember, I had no choice because the laser phase is rotating also. So I had no choice, and we had to go and do that. So what do I do in a deployed system? Well, if I have a commercial system that I've deployed, there are a couple solutions I can do. One that's very robust is to use what we call differential encoding, that my data is not on what particular point I'm at on that 4 points, but rather where I changed from. If I changed from the previous one at pi over 2 and the new one's pi over 4, then I had a negative pi over 4, and the negative pi over 4 is the data that was transmitted. So that's called differential encoding. Another solution could be to send a pilot symbol. So I send one, I know this is the corner one. I could periodically send that one alone. And then I know when I've done my rotation, if it ends up after my rotation that's down here, then I know, oh no, I got to turn it back. So that's a pilot symbol, another solution that's possible. Now, when I'm in the laboratory, I'm going to do a different solution. In the laboratory, what are my objectives? My objectives are to apply the CMA and to measure bit error rate, to see how effective my solution is. And so in that case, I know what was transmitted, right? So I know what was transmitted. So I could just match it up that way. Or, I could try all 4, and whichever one has the lowest bit error rate, well, obviously that's the right one. So there are a couple of ways that we're going to do in the laboratory, which won't be the same as what's used and deployed, but it's a necessary step. So don't forget to do this step if you're working in the laboratory. So in conclusion, we have a 4D version of the constant modulus algorithm that can blindly undo birefringence in the fiber. Since we've already got this structure of CMA in place, we don't design it to only solve the Jones matrix. We also have it just act as an equalizer. While you're at it, undo the rotation for the Jones matrix, but also correct for any other impairments that you could equalize. It's effective, remember, despite the fact that the laser phase noise is present. And so when we come out of the CMA, don't expect to see a clean constellation. You're not going to see that. What you hopefully see is a ring, because the CMA is supposed to design to give you a ring. Later on, we'll be doing the phase recovery to undo the laser phase noise in order to get back to the original constellation. And because of that, it's very important that the MIMO precede the carrier phase estimation. First, get rid of that polarization rotation, then we'll deal with laser phase noise.